This review of Armand Hammer's Mercy is going to be the shortest, the least in-depth review I've ever done of anything by Billy Woods, Elucid, or Armand Hammer. And there's no good reason for it. There's not a single good reason for it. You know, a good reason would be, oh, it's lacking depth, or it's not as good, or they've taken a step down. It's not lacking depth. They haven't taken a step down. There's no good reason, but there is the real reason. And that is that human beings we're weak. Human beings are weak. We're emotion-minded. And frankly, we're very silly people. And I know that we're silly people because I've been hearing people talk about this album online a little bit. And let me tell you something. I'm a Boston Red Sox fan. That's my team. 1986, I remember watching the ball go through Bill Buckner's legs. I shaved my head when we won in 2004. Not to the skin, but, just a buzz cut. And, I hate the Yankees. I hate them. I hate them with all my guts. I hate the Yankees. But just yesterday, Aaron Judge, the player for the Yankees, won the World Series. And there was some question about whether or not he should, because Cal Raleigh of the Seattle Mariners had one of the best seasons in the history of the position of catcher. But Aaron Judge should have won the MVP. He was the only choice. There was no even real choice there. He had 330 with 53 home runs. Are you serious? The reason why anybody would not have voted for him is because he's already won 2 times. And this is me, a Red Sox fan, who thinks that Aaron Judge is a steroid-laden, overrated dude who looks like Randy from frickin' Peebee's Playhouse. Look it up. Dead ringer. But I know he should have won. The reason that maybe you think it should have been some other guy is probably the same reason that you didn't want the Dodgers to win. Is probably the same reason why maybe you heard Mercy by Armand Hammer and you said, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. It's called excellence fatigue. And let me tell you, I'm suffering from it. Not being excellent. I'm suffering from fatigue. My wife has had this terrible sinus infection for the past 2 weeks, and so she hasn't been sleeping. My babies haven't been sleeping. It's been tough. It's been a fatigue time. But there is such a thing as excellence fatigue, where you just get maybe that's why my videos are dropping in numbers. Maybe you are tired of my excellence. Maybe I need to be lame. Maybe this sub-quality video will... I'm really selling it, Skye. Smash like bucket for sub-quality videos. Sub-quality isn't even a term. Maybe this will help me. Maybe you're tired of me being so excellent. Because that's kind of how it feels. We are just tired of the Alchemist and Billy Woods and Elucid being so damn good and so damn prolific. I mean, do you have Alchemist fatigue? Do you have alcohol poisoning? Like I do? Did you not even review his album with Hit Boy? Did you not even listen to it, even though you like Hit Boy and Alchemist when they work together? What excuse do you have for not listening to that? Hit Boy, one of the greatest producers of all time. Alchemist, one of the greatest producers of all time. Why didn't you listen to that? Why didn't I listen to that? Because of excellence fatigues, my friends. And I understand it. Alchemist releases more music. Does he release more music than No Limit did back in the 90s? I think he does. Beats by the pound. But, they're all really good. But, you can just take your fatigue, and I hate to say it, I hate to speak in such a vulgar way, but you can take your fatigue and cram it with walnuts, buddy. Because Alchemist is still making great work. It is our job to overcome the excellence fatigue, to double down. You know what we need to be like? We need to be like Homer Simpson when he gets sent to hell. Remember that? The ironic punishment division where they take Homer and they strap him into a chair and the devil says, oh, so you like donuts? How about unlimited donuts? And they keep just shoving donuts 4 at a time into his mouth. And after an hour, he's like, more. That's how we need to be. We need to be Homer Simpson in hell. That's how motivated we have to be. Because you might have Alchemist fatigue, which makes sense because he's released 11 good things this year, and they're all really good. I mean, how does this even compare with his work with Larry June? I mean, it doesn't even sound anything like it. How does he manage to figure out how to produce differently? How does he know how to do it? You just have to rise above. Okay, everybody? So are you ready to say it with me? More. Because rap has never been better. Hip-hop has never been better. It's just really different. it's really different because we got a lot of folks over the age of 40 who are making art at like the highest possible level, and they're doing it so consistently. It's like it's beats by the pound. It's like I don't understand how so many of them are making so much great music so quickly. Let's take as an example the track California Games. Like, Alchemist has this beat with flutes, and you're like, cool, man, a flute beat. We've heard flute beats before. But are you listening? I'm sorry I'm so aggressive today. Are you listening? Hey, numbnuts, are you listening? Hey, underpants, are you listening? Tell me in the comments, what movie does it come from? Where someone says, hey, underpants. Are you listening? Because what Alchemist does, he's so smooth. He's so smooth it's almost unfair. The beat changes. The sample evolves. It gets slightly different behind each rapper. The sample, whatever it is, it extends imperceptibly. It's like he has a band. It's like he's frickin' Duke Ellington up there telling the band what to do. Who else can do this? Who else can extend out a sample so efficiently, so meaningfully, so effortlessly that you can hear it and go, yeah, it's another Alchemist beat. You know, maybe you got Woods fatigue. That makes sense. I'm still processing the album whose name I'm not comfortable saying. Should I call it? I think I'm going to call it Golly W. It's just an incredible album. Just an incredible album. But here's the thing. When I was breaking this album down, this quick review, I don't know how long it's going to be. I've already been talking for a little while, so maybe it won't be that short. Sorry to drink on screen, but I do have some kind of cold or throat thing happening. When I was preparing this video, holy cow. Like, I just started just cutting and pasting important Woods lyrics. And I would say this album has about a 90% hit rate. Like a 90% hit rate in terms of lyrics that are quotable and fascinating. I mean, take, for example, my least favorite song on the album, probably, Calypso Gene. His lyric, the river is a border, the border is the river. The snipers watch me 2.7 pounds of pressure on that trigger. Like, he puts you in this image of, we don't know what border, we don't know where it is, but we can imagine that this person is in the water and they're in between these two countries, and someone on one of the sides sees them as a sniper. You know, is this about America? Is this about the American immigration system? Is this about ICE? Is this about Haiti and the Dominican Republic? Is this about somewhere in Africa? This is like the universal story of refugees and the antipathy towards them and the specificity of the 2.7 pounds of pressure that's required to pull on that trigger. And this is just in the middle of a fucking song. Just how many songs is Woods going to put out? I'm so tired. I'm so tired of this excellence. I hit myself too hard right there. But that's what it is, man. Dude, brosif, lady, and be friendly. You know, that's what this is. It's just like, it is just bewildering. We are in the middle of this run. And the same way that you can't really sit back and appreciate what Aaron Judge, howdy doody mother, you can't appreciate what he's doing because he does it too much. So that's our job. Maybe you got Elucid fatigue. That's a little bit less likely. I just got a text from my wife, so I have to pause the recording. It is just a question mark. That's not a good sign. 1 second. All right, where was I? All right, I was talking about Elucid. You know, you probably don't have Elucid fatigue. You know, he did release Revelator last year, which was one of the best albums of the year. And you know, maybe you're not frustrated as much as maybe you're like me and you sort of wanted more Revelator style stuff. But, you know, like, he just has so many great lyrics in here. The more I think about Armand Hammer, I realize they're sort of like Public Enemy with like 2 Chuck D's, you know, like, especially this album that's, you know, like, they often have very aggressive production, and then they're often very political, but they don't kind of have the gesture to go along, you know. But just like this lyric, you know, sour to the tongue, alive with pleasure, Kelly Green and Mandarin Orange. I believe he's talking about a pack of Newports multiple times on this album. They make reference to Newport cigarettes, which are menthol cigarettes, targeted to primarily African Americans in the United States, owned by Laura Lard Tobacco Company, I believe. I smoked Newports for a while. Not my thing. Kelly Green and Mandarin Orange, I think that's the colors. Who I'm is, whom I aren't. He's messing around with very poetic, messing around with syntax, messing around with structure. Everything's justified when you're starving, right? Hands of chance, buried lambs, not to be spotted in darkness, night, twice, thrice, feeling spiteful. It's always where you going and never just I'm right here with you. Part of keeping your word isn't saying much. Part of keeping your word isn't saying much. So, like, the less you say, the less you have to stay true to. Okay. Three-legged stray expectations, lapping ankles under shaky tables. Like a three-legged dog under a shaky table, licking your ankles. Is that what this is? Change your tone, grab my things, I'm gone. This is what I'm talking about. There's a lot of good stuff happening. I haven't gotten to the Rosalia album. The Danny Brown album took me a long time. There's already the Chez Noir and the Love the Genius album came out. There's a lot of stuff going on here. You might miss this. So let's get to the rest of the album, right? Thank you for auditing the Always Positive New Music Review Show hosted by a French professor who gives himself a headache from punching himself in the face. How much? Hey, I did the thing Justin Hunt always asks us to do. If you don't listen to Armand Hammer, punch yourself in the face. A 2-second applause. Whee! So I'm going to go through the rest of the album pretty quickly. Because again, I'm tired, everybody. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to talk about it. Doesn't mean I'm not going to talk about Laraji, named after the experimental musician, who is coming to Rochester, New York. I might go see him just because of this song. Really aggravating beat to start. Starts with Elucid, this restarting electric guitar. Dun, dun. Grandmaster Flash gave me a job. What a beautiful way to think about it. What a beautiful way to think about it. Grandmaster Flash, one of the acknowledged three fathers of hip-hop. Well, only two of them are talked about right now. Don't look up the history of Africa Bambaataa. It's a great way to talk about the value of music to him. Myth of meritocracy, F a cock and squeeze, and then go straight into Billy Woods. There's not a lot of choruses. There's not a lot of cuteness. This is not a cute album. This is a dour album. This is dour. D-O-U-R. Should have killed me when I had the chance. Now it's out of your hands. I don't need an advance. I don't dance. It feels like a lot of this is about the record label, about the record industry. Herzog voiceover, the camera pans. Man, everyone's on to Werner Herzog now. Where were you in 96, 95? That's when I was into Herzog back in the day. Saw him speak once at the Harvard Film Archive as a teenager. It's fun. But Herzog is always talking about depressing, sad things. And I guess, he was quoted in the Clips album. So there you go. There's no use writing, rest assured you're wasting words. The world doesn't turn anymore. Half burns, the other side will never thaw. Burning books to keep warm. Talking about the nature of our civilization as it's broken into half, as we just keep getting more and more divided. And there's no peace, there's no joy, there's no happy middle. There's only burning and there's only burning and freezing. And we have to burn books to keep warm. Should have killed him when you had the chance. Who's him? Hey. Oh, hey, Woods, trying to get me on a watch list? Who's him? You trying to get me on a watch list? Who's him, Woods? Who's him? I don't know. And just like every single line is gold. God sides with the winners, the thief next to Jesus. I assume this is a shout out to Ka. I wanted to be better than my father, but history just repeated. Hold me back. Hold me back. I'm about to give it to myself one more. I'm about to hit myself again because I can't believe I was sleeping on this album. I wanted to be better than my father, but history just repeated. Oh my God. Because that's the thing, when you have kids and you try to be a better father and then you make the same mistakes as them, it's like this terrible moment that you realize you're trying to break the wheel. Everybody go to therapy, break the wheel. Go to therapy, break the wheel. Go to therapy, break the wheel. There's a wheel of dysfunction, a wheel of violence, a wheel of suffering in every single family. And you got to try to break the wheel because you don't break the wheel, you're just going to keep going. And that's what he's rapping about. So, what am I supposed to do with this? Broken men playing out the string. It's football season, December in Cleveland, lining up, but in my heart, I'm already beaten. Just seriously, if I were to hit myself for every good line on this album from Woods, I'd be doing. Do you remember that movie? What's that movie? Where Jim Carrey gets into a fight and starts punching himself in the face. Fight Club. Then we get to Peshawar. this insane beat with this tinkling down piano. Just again. Do you have Alchemist fatigue? I'm sorry. Rappers make me sick like an airport mall fragrance on an empty stomach. Elucid with the most specific. Tell me you spend too much time on the road without telling me you spend too much time on the road when you have feelings on airport mall fragrances. And then he says Bismarck stutter step going off. No, it can't be. It can't be. I just would like to say, of all the things I talk about on this channel, probably the most repeated, there's two terms I use. Most often, okay, I use the term skitchy to refer to kind of like scratchy, aggravating sounds. If anyone ever says skitchy, I think they're quoting me. And the second thing I talk about is the stutter step on Nobody Beats the Biz off of Biz Marquis' album, Going Off. So when he said Bismarck stutter step going off, I don't think it's possible. But I was like, is he watching my videos? Did he watch me describe something as having a Bismarck stutter step? I'm not the only person to do it. It'd be completely megalomaniacal. It'd be Meghan Markleable of me to think that, sorry, it's Friday, everybody. I've been teaching all day. I had meetings, I had advising. I'm tired as hell. So it would be megalomaniacal and Meghan Markleable of me to think that that's because of me that he said Bismarck stutter step. But I gotta say, I heard it. I don't know. Sometimes people watch my stuff. This is why I'm not on Twitter. This is the craziest thing I've ever said. If I were on Twitter, I would say that, and then I'd get flamed out. Hey, how are things going on Twitter, by the way, for white hip-hop commentators? Going well? Yeah? Good. I haven't really been paying attention to the news. It seems like it's going great. And just what else can you do? What else can you do with these lyrics? I just typed them all out. What am I supposed to do? Thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a human mind. That's the rubric. Deep Blue versus Vladimir Putin. Stepped in the other room, but Hal still reads your lips. A 2001 reference. Deep Blue, the computer that won Jeopardy. And then versus Vladimir Putin, like the dictators. Tears in my eyes, listening to machines make music. It's beautiful. Machines making music. That's the time that we're living in, everybody. We're living in the time of machines making music. I'm going like full Cody Shody. I'm going full Cody Johnston on this review. I need Warmbo or something here. Jesus Christ, I'm going crazy. What am I supposed to do? Tears in my eyes, listening to machines make music. Elucid. 90 on the Loop Parkway, Robert Moses boost the crime rate. In the last song, he talked about Grandmaster Flash giving him a job because Grandmaster Flash is one of the people who invented hip-hop. Why was hip-hop invented in the South Bronx? South Bronx. Why? Because of the Cross Bronx Expressway. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, in the middle of the 20th century, they decided to put a highway in the middle of the goddamn Bronx. You might know it as the 495. It's also called the CBE, the Cross Bronx Expressway. Highways are never situated randomly. They're always situated in places with the least amount of political power, which means where the poor people are, which means everybody who could afford to leave the Bronx left the Bronx, which means the people who were left were mostly the Hispanic and black populations who could not afford to leave and live somewhere else underneath the shadow of a gigantic Cross Bronx Expressway, which means they all got together, which means they didn't have anything to do after work because there was a high rate of unemployment, and on top of that, everything was on fire because it was more profitable for the slumlords to burn the buildings down than it was to rent them out at rent-controlled prices. Which means they got together and they broke up the gangs because they somehow realized the gangs weren't going to do it. Which means they needed something to fill in that space, which means they invented hip-hop music. So if it wasn't for Robert Moses, who designed, developed, and executed the Cross Bronx Expressway, there would be no hip-hop. He is the diabolical, the same way that Ronald Reagan invented gangster rap, Robert Moses invented hip-hop. He is the evil white guy, or a evil white guy who helped to invent rap music. I don't know, album's pretty good, but it's not as good as Diabetic Test Strips. I would have liked some more JPEG Mafia. You hear what I'm saying? Man, I am unhinged. Calypso Gene already mentioned a great shuffling beat. River's the border's the river. Rather lift me off the car. Oh my God. Father lifts me out the car, half dead, carry me into sleep. That's what love still feels like to me. Have you ever been a father carrying your kids in from the car? They are the deadest weight. It is the sweetest possible feeling. The powers of observation and poetic illustration that Woods has is literally second to none. There's just no one better at it. I don't think in hip-hop history there's ever been anyone as good as Woods. Not at doing this. Not at poetic illustrations. Glue traps. Kind of a... Why did I say this sounds like the 70s soundtrack to a French porno? I've never seen any French pornos from the 70s, as far as you know. Hey, Canal Plus. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Real money is whatever's in your pocket when you're broke. It's hard to get out of bed when there are glue traps behind the stove. When I talk about Woods' ability to use detail, to illustrate things, to use poetic detail and observation, this is what I'm talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, I said this was going to be a quick review. I was lying because... Don't sing. Don't sing, Skye. If I could edit that out, I would. I was lying. It's hard to get out of bed when there are glue traps behind the stove. I'm very lucky. I've never lived in poverty. I've never lived in food insecurity. I'm an extremely fortunate person on the face of the earth. I was the recipient of millions of invisible and unequally distributed gifts that allowed me to never know hunger and never know poverty. But I can read this, I can hear this, and I feel it. It's hard to get out of bed when there are glue traps behind the stove, meaning that there are rats and mice and bugs behind the stove, and glue traps themselves are super duper gross. This level of detail, this amount of just brief explanation, reminds me of the work of Honoré de Balzac. So yeah, I'm going to talk about Balzac, okay? Balzac was a French realist. Realists were people who realized that art needed to not just belong to the aristocracy, it also needed to belong to the lower classes and the working classes. And in order to do that, you had to tell their stories. And one thing that they really emphasized was using detail to convey atmosphere and truth. So in his most famous book, Père Goriot, in his most famous chapter, Chapter 1, he describes this boarding house, which is a place where poor and old people who had nowhere else to go would rent rooms and live in just this really gross boarding house. And he tries to describe it. And each word that he describes, this is 1830s, right? 1830s? When was it, man? Yeah, I think that's right. Point is, 19th century, long time ago. How do you describe this? The first room exhales an odor for which there is no name in the language and which should be called l'odeur de pension. It should just be called boarding house odor. The damp atmosphere sends a chill through you as you breathe it. It has a stuffy, musty, and rancid quality. It permeates your clothing. After-dinner scents seem to be mingled in with it. It smells from the kitchen and the scullery and the reek of a hospital. It might be possible to describe it if someone should discover a process by which to distill from the atmosphere all the nauseating elements with which it is charged by the catharo exhalations of every individual lodger, young or old. Yet in spite of these stale horrors, the sitting room is as charming and as delicately perfumed as a boudoir when compared with the adjoining dining room. All those details, to me, it feels the same. When you say, in just one sentence, it's hard to get out of bed when there's glue traps behind the stove, I feel the same level of connection and understanding. It is the same level of evocativeness as Balzac describing this terrible place with the smells from the kitchen and the scullery and the reek of a hospital. Anyways, all white crowd, I laughed at the little jokes. Man, I feel so bad. Man, I don't feel so bad because most indie rappers who have mostly white fans are aware of the demographics of their fandom to not allow it to torture them so much. But I still, it must be weird. You know, to feel like you're the entertainment for people who have received so many benefits at your expense. You know what I mean? That's gotta be weird. There's like you can actually hear the car in the car chase from the sample. Kelkris is on here, doing a good verse, kind of going in on different Scandinavia, sleepy jazz pianos, bass drum, this half-open hi-hat. Talking about going back to hustling, talking about how weird it is seeing ice on the plane. True story. One time we were going to fly to Maryland. We got on the plane, we sat down on the plane. My mom saw that they were de-icing the wing, and she's like, "We're out," and we just got up and left. Left the airplane. We said, "We gotta leave. We gotta go." So. Anyways, there was a Playboy in the seat in front of my brother. It's his birthday today. I sent that message. Know by Mouth, this great far behind beat. Just listen to the snare and the bass. All of you who have alcohol poisoning, Elucid, went to sleep and dreamed of exploding beepers. Israel and Gaza are all over this album. I'm just waiting for people to fill my comment section saying, how can you review an album by Alchemist? Because he doesn't say enough, or I don't know what. Every time I talk about Alchemist, some people come after me on the basis of Gaza. I don't know. There's a genocide happening in Gaza, and not everyone is responding as everyone else would like. But this album is pretty on the nose at times. Friday Night Lights, cannibals fill the bleachers, read in their last rites, feed him to the creature, feed the monster, feed the meter, might do a couple features. Feeding the meter is what he calls doing features. You know what I'm saying? God damn. Dead of night, open the freezer, bathed in light. Open the freezer, bathed in light. Every day is a heist, carpe diem. Then we get to dog-eared. What is going on, everybody? This is the thing, right? Aaron Judge put up those frickin' numbers. That little howdy-doody garbage man put up all those numbers, so you're just kind of used to it. You hear this like jazzy, basically drumless beat, and you listen to it, and you're just flying with this like jazz singing in the background. You're just flying. You're flying with this beat. But you're tired of it? You're tired of it? You're tired of it? Woods says, mask off like Future. The biggest disappointment I had is when Woods told me in the interview that he doesn't listen to Future. For some reason, I really would have liked that more. Crisis Phone, killer faraway drums, echo and atmosphere. A whole verse here about chicken feet, which is great. My wife loves eating chicken feet. A whispery verse from Pink Sifu. It's good. Moonbow, high soul sing. I don't like this beat that much. A whole reference to Pinochet. Step off the plane and smile when I can see my breath. You Negroes is dead. That's a word that can be said, right? Yeah, it's like the NAACP, right? Tell me in the comments if you felt uncomfortable with me saying that. As far as I can tell, it's an old-fashioned term, but it's not considered offensive, unless like I'm calling somebody that. Anyways, the people is fed from the palm of a tyrant, Michelin star, you dine in near silence, silverware rattling, chewing and sighing, luxuriously slow violence like Pinochet's best pilots, death flights with the sun behind us, the South Atlantic, a carpet of shimmering diamonds. Pinochet was a Chilean dictator, supported by the Americans. We helped him so much. Every single person who was killed was partly killed by our government. Just, so you remember. So I'm teaching about Duvalier in my Haiti class, and it's the same thing. All you had to do is say, I hate communism, and America just gave you a blank check. So Pinochet would drop people out of helicopters into the ocean as a way of killing them. And this is like a way of describing like the world that we're living in. This luxuriously slow violence. No grabba, the gauzy piano sounds, makes reference to Frederick Douglass. Sweet. I live in Rochester. When you fly into Rochester, you fly into Frederick Douglass International Airport. What's the name of your airport, and why does it suck compared to Frederick Douglass Airport? I don't really know what no grabba means, but I like it. It's the closest thing to like a hook in the album. I'm known in Kinshasa, Kitchenkin, Rwanda. I don't know no Lingala, but please, I know it's no grabba in the spliff. Maybe it's a drug thing. First in show, I love that little, I'm old and slow, but I'll get you 14 and 6 and a couple assists. The more I listened, the more I knew the whole thing was a grift, and it worked. 2 left feet picking through piles of kicks outside the gas chamber. Jesus Christ, that's bleak. Elucid has a whole verse that's kind of tied around the World Trade Center without saying it. World Trade Temple, towers like NBA, African centers in the 90s, talking about Hakeem Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson. I know my ball. Danny Brown says, I know my ball. Those were the Twin Towers in the Houston Rockets offense of the 80s. They couldn't beat the Celtics in 86, though. You Know My Body is just, I don't know, is this the definitive rap song about Israel? Maybe. Maybe, but it's also not about Israel. It's about genocide in general. It's about indifference towards genocide in general. Bodies in the water like apples bopping gently. This reminds me of a great song about the French massacre of Algerian protesters on October 17th, 1961. Where they drowned a bunch of Algerians in the Seine River, and he refers to them as water lilies in the water. The same idea. Bottles in the water gently. Bodies stand sentry on bottered corners gently, with the tiny coffins almost barely empty. So I don't know how much you've studied poetry. Maybe none, maybe some. This is what you call really effective poetry. Paradox. Almost barely empty. Tiny coffins. Like everything about it, every descriptor makes it more and more horrific. Coffin is terrible. Tiny coffin is even more terrible. Empty, oh, phew. The coffin's empty. There's no dead babies. Almost empty. Oh, almost barely. Which I assume means that there's so little left of the baby's body that the tiny coffin is almost barely empty. If you'd like to consider that some more, I invite you not to, because it's going to ruin your day. Bodies on bodies on bodies on bodies. Everybody was somebody. Moments before their body was torn. This is about the humanity, about the fact that we just see numbers. How many kids? How many people? How many just then? Everybody was somebody. Bodies like porn after echoing the guns and bombs is gone. Bodies sit forlorn, pitched among the bricks, flung like empty purse after the mugging. Bodies like an empty purse after the mugging. Look what the cat drug in, still moving, piteous. Search the rubble for the slightest movement in the ruins. Secrets grow hideous inside the computers. Bottomless pits for bodies to get dropped off in the Caspian forest. A bitter harvest, a dollhouse of horrors. That's why this really short review is 32 minutes long. Because I had to read the whole thing. Long John's great double hi-hat beat. I just said take your Alchemist poisoning and eat a dick. I just said that because this lyric is just so good. These beats are so good. Crazy. Man, Cleo. Is it Cleo? Sorry, Cleo Reed. Just amazing on here. Her singing here. We got a little Ghostface reference from Cal Chris. Shake that Illuminati by nature. California games. That was a packing game on the Atari Lynx. My brother got me an Atari Lynx for my birthday one year. For Christmas one year. Really, Hacky Sack was oddly my favorite game on there. Insane Flute. And again, this is that one I was talking about with that flute thing here. And then the album ends with Super Nintendo. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Just the gentleness and the sweetness. It's not quite a video game soundtrack. It's not quite, chip-tuned, but it does feel kind of video gamey. And it's almost at odds with Elucid's verse. Grew peculiar and wild, style cast shadow like a sundial, ta-dow. And then the chorus, which ties, I think, a lot into maps. And a lot of Woods' work is actually quite nostalgic. And this is the nostalgic. I think it's describing leaving church and playing Super Nintendo and getting high after church, like the feeling of release after church. We had fun on that Super Nintendo. Sunday services blew church out the window. We was done finger guns to our temples. I assume that's like not a taxi driver thing, but just like the feel that they had, like having to go to church. You know what I mean? Just like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to go to church, Finger guns to our temples. We had fun on that Super Nintendo. Toweled the door, blew church out the window. You put a towel on the door so that, when you smoke weed, you can't smell. It used to be that weed was illegal. And I don't smoke weed, and I frankly hate it, but I'm super happy it's not illegal. I'm super happy people get to do it. I just don't think they ever should. But, this is that feeling of release and relief. True story. I got a Super Nintendo. And the way I got it was my parents were out of town, and my brother, who's 6 years older than me, whose birthday it is today, he said, "Do you want to go to school?" I said, "No." He said, "All right, cool. I'll call in." He called in my teacher, Principal Wright. Called him in and said, "This is Mr. Page. Skye is sick today." And we went to the Lechmere Mall, and we bought a Super Nintendo and the game Super Star Wars. I don't even know where you got the money. I don't know. I don't know what was going on. This is like the greatest thing any brother has ever done for anybody ever. We went into the Lechmere Mall, man. The Lechmere Mall. You know Lechmere Mall. We went in. We bought a Super Nintendo. And I didn't even play Super Mario. I didn't even play the pack-in game. I just played Super Star Wars. And we waited for my friends, because there was no cell phones. We waited for my friends outside of the school and picked them up and brought them back to my house to play Nintendo. They're like, Skye, you're not in school? I said, no, I was hanging out with my brother playing Super Nintendo. Now, listen, I could do a whole thing about, like, the release that was, the feeling of neglect and pain that I felt in the household, the abandonment and all that stuff. I could make good poetry out of it. Or I could just make a fun story about a Super Nintendo. All right, I've got to go. I hope you've enjoyed this review. I've enjoyed it, even though I've been totally unhinged. What's your favorite song? How do I get you to engage? What's your favorite Super Nintendo game? Do you Sega Genesis is better than Super Nintendo? So tell me in the comments what you think about that. There's the camera.